Well, good afternoon. My name is Destiny Albritton. I'm the Senior Director of Next Gen at Christians United for Israel, and I'm also a proud Missourian. Supporting Israel and the Jewish people is our core value at Christians United for Israel. We're working tirelessly with our 10 million members around the world to make Israel stronger and her people safer. As Christians and as Americans, we know we must stand in solidarity as we remember the tragedy of October 7th, 2023, as we approach the near 1 year anniversary of that tragic, historic day, the single deadliest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. We must remember the over 1,200 precious lives that were cut down by terrorists, the sexual violence perpetrated, and the 240 hostages taken by Hamas to the Gaza Strip. It did not go unnoticed that this very building we're standing in was lit blue and white in solidarity with the people of Israel during that tragic time, and I will never forget that. And I believe every Jewish member of our community will never forget that the state of Missouri stood with Israel in that time of darkness and tragedy. We honor the lives of the 6 Israeli hostages who were found murdered in a tunnel in the Gaza Strip this last weekend. I'd just like us to just take a moment and honor those lives and remember, just commemorating the moment that we're living in. These were 6 people whose lives were taken from them, people who had dreams, people who had loved ones. They unimaginably are believed to have been murdered between 48 and 72 hours of the IDF finding their bodies. They survived hell in Hamas captivity for nearly 11 months, surviving life-threatening injuries and deformities for nearly a year, only for their lives to be stolen by savagery when help was so close. I'd like to say their names while we're gathered here to get together. Their names are Ori Danino, Eden Yerushalmi, Almog Sarusi, Alexander Lobanov, Carmel Gott, and American citizen Hirsch Goldberg Polin. Yes, an American citizen was murdered by Hamas terrorists after being held hostage for nearly 11 months. Of the 100 Israeli hostages remaining in Gaza, 7 of them are American citizens. I'd like to tell you a bit about the 7 Americans who are still in Gaza as we're gathered here to support Israel and support the Jewish people. Keith Segal, he's 64 years old from North Carolina. His wife and daughters I had the honor of meeting earlier this year. Omer Nutra, 22 years old from New York. Judith Weinstein Haggai, 70 years old from New York. Gadi Haggai, 73 years old. Sagid Dekel Hen, 35 years old. Itai Hen, 19 years old. And Eden Alexander, a beautiful 23-year-old Jersey boy whose parents I also had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year. It's been 334 days since October 7th. That's 334 days of hostages held captive. That's 334 days Israel has been at war, and 334 days of the Jewish community in America desiring help, desiring support, feeling alone like this generation has never experienced. Since October 7th, 2023, 73% of Jewish college students have experienced or witnessed anti-Semitism. Nearly half of American Jewish students think anti-Jewish prejudice is a problem on their campus. Only 38.6% of Jewish students feel comfortable with other people knowing that they're Jewish. In America, think about that. Less than half of Jewish college students are comfortable with other people knowing that they're Jewish. This is no surprise when you see that presidents of Ivy League universities can't decide if calling for genocide of Jews violates their student code of conduct. And when you see at many campuses posters of Israeli hostages are torn down. Even at the University of Missouri, sadly, a beautiful display commemorating the hostages was violently attacked last year. I'm very thankful that the authorities in Columbia took that incident seriously and they punished the individual responsible for that violence towards Jewish students. I'm very thankful that they took that so seriously. We know that those who turned a blind eye to these evils simply because the victims were in Israel, they should be ashamed of themselves. We know that children are not combatants. We know that human life is sacred, and we know that sexual violence is not resistance. At Christians United for Israel, we are proud to stand with Israel and the Jewish people, and we're training the next generation of Christian leaders to embrace their Jewish brothers and sisters and stand shoulder to shoulder against anti-Semitism in every form. I'd like to honor that we have Kufai High School students here in this row here. Can you guys wave? The next generation of Christian leaders standing strong with Israel and the Jewish people. I'd also like to honor that Caitlin, the young lady who sang the national anthem, is our president of Kufai at Mizzou. I'd also like to honor that my sister, who sang the Israeli national anthem, was the president of the Kufai chapter at Mizzou formerly as well. And I also would like to honor that Dan Swindell has done so much work in defending the people of Israel and defending the Jewish people in Columbia and specifically at the University of Missouri. It may feel when you turn on the news like Israel has so many enemies, but we have hope and we have faith. We know that he who keeps Israel never slumbers and he never sleeps. I'm reminded of a story my mom would tell me when I was younger. When I was a child and I didn't want to go to bed, what do all kids say? Mom, tell me a bedtime story. She would always tell me the story of a Jewish girl named Esther, who was taken from her home, taken from her family, and became queen of Persia. She would tell me of her cousin Mordecai's famous words challenging Queen Esther to bravery. He said, "If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will surely die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this." At Christians United for Israel, we often remind our high school and college students of these famous words. We know these are challenging times and the resistance we face from Israel's enemies is real. But the people of Israel lived on after Esther's bravery spared them. And on that day, we know that sadly, the hatred that the Jewish people faced at that hour lived on as well. But deliverance and relief for the Jews did arise. We've seen it over and over, and we will see it again in this hour. We also remember that when Esther's courage saved the Jewish people from destruction, their enemies were destroyed instead. So we are confident when we pray for Israel, when we pray for the hostages, and when we demand that they are brought home swiftly, especially when we pray for our countrymen and women, the American citizens. We know that Israel's enemies are America's enemies, and so I'm so thankful for the support for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship from our Missouri leadership. We do not take for granted that Israel is holding the line against Hamas and their Iranian backers who would destroy our Judeo-Christian values. We, in this moment, we remember those who were murdered on October 7th as we approach that one-year anniversary. And we also will not forget those taken by Hamas. We also won't forget those serving the IDF. And we also won't forget those protecting the hope of the Jewish people to be free in their own land, in the land of Israel, as they are an outpost for democracy and Western values. To our Jewish and Israeli brothers and sisters here with us today, please know that you are not alone. Do not give up, do not lose faith. We stand with you, Christians stand with you. I'm so thankful Missouri stands with you, and we stand with the Jewish people and with Jewish students. Thank you, Missouri State leadership. Thank you, Governor Parsons. Thank you, Secretary of State Ashcroft, for standing with Israel and for standing with the Jewish people. Thank you.